Big day here. Starting to work on the roll cage. We've got tubing starting to go in the car. We've got the car leveled and on jack stands. And I've got my professional welder here coming up from Florida. Brought my trailer. So we've got that. He's working on getting some studs mounted on there to get our slicks mounted on the side. And I gotta work on getting the seat in, and then we'll be starting to fit the roll cage. So here we go. Day 2 update. This is, we got day 1 done, and we are so far got the hoop in there, the halo bar, and we're getting the A bar or the A pillar bars tacked. Ethan's got this one starting to weld on the top. We took and cut a couple of holes in the floor so we could drop the cage down to actually get at the welds on the top. And we've got the quarter glass will flop out a little bit so we can get at the welds on the top there. Ethan's laying down some fat beads on the other A bar, looking pretty good. And once that's done, we'll take and jack the rest of the cage up and then slide the plates underneath of it. There's some 6x6 plates that go underneath those that actually have to get welded to the floor. So we'll get that done and then be ready to start doing harness bar, door bars, and then the rear braces and the down struts. So overall going fairly well. Progress is slow but good. Getting everything tucked up into the dash like we want it, and fits the car really well. So I'm happy with it. Also, I figure while Ethan's out welding my cage, I can come out here and show you the trailer he's been working on for me. So I bought this little trailer down in Florida. That's where Ethan's at, and he's been working on that down there while I've been working on the car up here. So this is just kind of it's a little motorcycle trailer, but it's got a flip-up lid. We got probably 30 cubic feet of storage area, but we mounted not an axle but a bar on the front here, fabbed a bar for that to put the slicks on, so we can carry the slicks on us because they don't fit stacked up in the trailer, or don't really fit. They take up too much room being laid down side by side. So yeah, this is kind of our drag week setup. He's got a little light switch here, turns on the LEDs on the side there. So that's what we're going to be using for a trailer. Yeah, so that's really stoked to have that. That'll be pulled behind the car. So that's a piece of the puzzle that's done and out of the way. Alright, update video. It's been about 2 weeks since me and Ethan got the cage done. I've gone ahead and got it all painted finally. I know Ethan was telling me to do a little more videoing on the roll cage when we were doing it, but honestly it took 2 of us all of 3 days to get it done. But it turned out really nice. Got all the plates welded to the floor, and got everything set in place where it needs to be, and it's fully welded now. Next step, I gotta mount the firewall in the back. I gotta put some self-tapping screws in it and kind of clean up that edge on the top there, put a little sill plate to kind of wrap around that, and come up with a couple of brackets on the bottom so it's not flapping, and that way I can actually put seam sealer on the back of it to seal it up, since it does have to be sealed. Otherwise, interior can start going back together. I gotta put some extra sheet metal back in the tunnel, around where I cut the 4-speed hump out. I'm working on doing a little reinforced seat mounting there. That needs to be, seat needs to be mounted to the cross members or rigid frame members, which there's not really any, so I'm kind of creating some. Seat belt came, got that. What else? One thing I did forget to mention, I am actually going to put carpet back in this car. I don't like the look of a gutted drag car. I think it's, I like a nice looking street car look. I'll also put some thermal insulation down, some thermal mat that sticks to the floor. And because we need to have the thermal control, because, so, you know, Plymouth, these are, down here, these are basically your fresh air vents. Since this car doesn't have AC, it pulls fresh air through the cowl and blows as you're going down the road, basically. And right now, I actually have to put a front bar in this thing that connects to the A-pillar bar here, and it's going to go pretty much straight up to the frame rail through where that box is right now, so we're probably going to lose those. So that's also another good reason to have carpet and insulation in this thing. I had to change up the seat setup a little bit. I had a single layer fiberglass seat, but you have to have a 1/2-inch tube framework around those to be legal per NHRA's rules. So we went back to the stock steel backed seat, less the slider tracks on the bottom. I'm just making a couple of brackets, some tube framework that's welded to the actual mounting brackets for the OE seat location off of the rocker sill. So that will be hopefully legal, and yeah, so that's the next step here, is get that seat mounted. So here we go. Faceplated TKX, check. Bell housing, attached. Torqued, check. Hydraulic throwout bearing, on, shimmed correctly. At least I think. Clutch lines, on and tightened. Okay, transmission's ready to go. Got our engine back from the dyno. Flywheel's torqued on. Clutch is on with the little pilot tool dingle bobber. Align the disc in there, torque the clutch down, check. Things ready to go together. I'm gonna put that together and get it in the car this weekend. So here we go. Also, this is a slipper clutch. Some people may ask about that. It's a McLeod soft lock clutch. It's actually for this whole setup is actually for a small block Ford. If you've listened to any of the earlier videos, I've talked about using a standard small block Ford 302 flywheel, just for availability and ease of getting parts without actually having to custom make them. It's a slipper clutch. Basically, you've got 6 adjusters here that you set your base pressure of your clutch, or you can adjust your base pressure by either tightening or loosening those adjusters. And then you also have these counterweights, which are these bolts stuck onto the clutch forks. There's three clutch fingers. So as RPM increases, those counterweights actually press on the clutch harder so that it clamps harder. And then your base pressure is basically your fine adjustment. So we've got about 22, 23 grams of counterweight. We're going to start there and see how that reacts. That's kind of what a lot of the guys that I know that run this setup are at least close to. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And then we'll adjust base pressure from there once we're testing. So here we go. So what's happening today? New subframe is here. New subframe is actually in the car. Working on getting it to fit with the rack and pinion steering. I don't actually have the rack yet, but you probably can't see it from up here, but it's still kind of in the way. Oil pan and the rack are kind of trying to take up the same space. So we're going to take and shift the whole engine and transmission back about 2.5 inches. And to do that, I've got to actually take a little square out of my firewall so we can recess the distributor, which is just going to be what it is. That's the fastest and the cheapest way to do it. I did look at getting a front drive distributor for it, and that's going to be a custom piece from Jessel, which I wouldn't mind doing, but I just don't have the time right now. So I'm going to do that and come down here. You can see the new subframes in there. You got the lower control arm on with the stock spindles and the stock upper control arms, and got the Viking shock, coilover shock in there. That's a C209, I think. I think that'll work with, I need to actually convert that upper eyelet to a stud mount, but thankfully Viking does sell a kit to do that. So just kind of mocking that up to make sure I just kind of see what's going on down here, make sure we're not off in the weeds or something's just straight up wrong. So that looks good. And then once I get that mounted with the rack in there, we can start putting the suspension together. So here we go. And also you can see that the actual header fits way better here than it did with the other subframe, which is good. And then down here you can actually see where the rack, that little U-shaped bracket is where the rack sits, and the oil pan is just there. So, but we're gonna move it back, move the engine transmission back, and that should fix that problem. So here we go. Okay, it's got the hole in the firewall cut. Distributor's under there. It's probably about halfway in the firewall. I moved it back significantly, probably about 2.5 inches. Starting to just about touch on the motor plate down there. I had to trim that just a little bit. Got the transmission crossmember is done. It's supporting the transmission right now. I've got the crane on the engine. I'll get to jack it up here in just a second. So I can position my engine, but I've got these motor mounts that I had to remake just because since we moved it back so far, the old motor mounts were kind of cut for up here, and those weren't going to work. So got new motor mounts. Steering rack is in. Actually got that in the other day, and you can kind of see not a whole lot of light. Crap. Fits, but definitely tight to that oil pan fitting. But that's good to have in. Only thing that doesn't really fit is the oil pump, which I got to address that. I think I'll address that with a couple of fitting changes and be okay there. But for now, we're going to jack this up, level it, set our angle front to back, side to side, and weld in some motor mounts. So here we go. So you saw me tack the motor mounts in there. Motor mounts are now welded. Got all the welds done. Mid plate mounts are also in, if you can see them back there. So engine and transmission is officially in the car. Now we're pretty much got to just start working our way around the engine and doing all the small things. So stay tuned for that. That's going to do it for this video. But leave a like, subscribe, and follow along. Thanks.